He was standing naked in the hallway when I threw the cup of cold water at his chest. I didn't say a word, not at first. He gasped, startled, his body jolting like a live wire as the water splashed across his skin, dripping down onto the hardwood floor. His eyes shot up, searching my face for some clue, some explanation, but he already knew. This wasn't about the water. It never was. This was about 20 years of, I'm working on it. 20 years of, hasn't it been better lately? 20 years of cold showers and colder apologies. I had finally hit the wall, not the kind you can see, the kind you feel, in your bones, in your stomach, in your silence, because you can only ask for basic respect so many times before something inside you breaks. So I let go, and I threw the water. Let me tell you how we got here. I was barely a teenager when I met him. That kind of young where you still believe patience can fix people. Where love means waiting, sacrificing, bending. And I bent, again and again. He's never been officially diagnosed with ADHD. He went through the testing and everything came back clean. But the symptoms, oh, they were there. Executive dysfunction, inability to plan, refusal to make lists or use alarms. He said those things were physically painful. He said he'd rather deal with the occasional emergency than live with structure. And for 20 years, I've been the one managing the emergencies. The toothpaste caps, the dishes left half done. The trail of forgotten details that somehow always ended in my lap. Always me picking up the last 10%. And somewhere in that mess, there was the shower diverter. You know what I mean? The little rod on the tub faucet. You push it down to let water fill the tub, pull it up to activate the shower. Simple. Every single time he showered, he'd forget to push it back down. And every single time I went to shower next, I'd get blasted in the face with freezing cold water, at least twice a month, maybe more. It became a ritual. Lean in, twist the knob, and boom, cold spray straight to the head. And every time, he'd apologize. Every time, he'd say, I'm working on it. Then it would happen again. I started to dread my own bathroom. To outsiders, it sounds small, petty even. Just push the rod down yourself, right? But it wasn't just about the water. It was about never being considered. It was about leaving things the way you found them, and him never doing that. The rod was always down when he walked in. I made sure of it. So why was it so impossible for him to return the favor? Why was I the only one adjusting? It started to eat at me. The mornings where I'd wake up groggy, wander to the bathroom, and be jolted into icy awareness by his latest slip. My chest tight, my heart pounding, my skin crawling. And then, his voice, warm and apologetic. Sorry, babe, I'm really working on it. Over and over, until those words meant nothing, like paper promises caught in a rainstorm. I didn't want perfection. I didn't even want an apology anymore. I wanted change. And if I couldn't get that, I wanted him to feel what I felt. So this morning, it happened again. Cold spray, wet hair, a jolt that burned all the way down my spine, and I snapped. I grabbed the nearest plastic cup, filled it with 3 inches of cold tap water, and walked into the hallway. He was standing there, bare, about to shower himself, head down, oblivious. And in one sharp, calculated motion, I tilted my wrist and threw the water right at him, angled perfectly to splash across his chest, his face, his dignity. He flinched, stunned, and then I spoke. I told him his apologies were meaningless, that I was done listening to him congratulate himself for almost improving. I told him I didn't accept his apologies anymore, that I didn't care, that it was an accident. I told him that from now on, every time I took a cold shower, he would too. I was tired of being polite, tired of being second in my own home, tired of feeling like I was begging for scraps of respect. I told him I was done asking, that if he wouldn't treat me better, I'd start treating him worse, because I wouldn't tolerate it anymore. And I meant it. I told him this was the new rule. If I get sprayed, he gets soaked, cold for cold, drop for drop. I expected him to yell, to defend himself, to argue, but he just stood there, wet, silent. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I walked back to the bathroom, shut the door behind me, and stared at my reflection. This wasn't a win. It wasn't justice. It was just tired. So here I am, asking strangers on the internet, am I the asshole? Because I know this isn't about the rod or the water. This is about 20 years of being asked to compromise, adjust, accommodate, about never having my frustration taken seriously unless I turned it into punishment. People will say, just check the valve before you get in. But that's the thing. I want a partner, not a roommate who needs a checklist. I want to feel like the little things I say matter, that I'm not asking for the moon when I say, please just put things back the way you found them. So, am I the asshole for finally deciding not to swallow my anger? Am I the asshole for refusing to carry this weight alone? Am I the asshole for throwing cold water on the man I still love, just to prove a point I've been trying to make for 2 decades? You tell me. Because I don't know anymore. I just know I'm tired of being wet. This story isn't really about a shower. It's about a slow leak. One you don't notice at first. A drip of carelessness here. A puddle of neglect there. Until one day, the floor gives out and you're standing in the wreckage of your own patience. What's tragic here is that both people are stuck. One, forgetting to change. The other, forgetting how to hope. When we stop believing our needs matter, when every small request gets buried under someone else's comfort, resentment blooms in the shadows. And sometimes, it comes out in the form of cold water. But punishment doesn't fix broken partnership. It just creates more silence, more shame, more distance. So maybe the real question isn't, am I the asshole? Maybe it's, is this relationship still alive? To our listeners, what would you do if your partner kept forgetting the one thing that made you feel seen? And what happens when the only way to be heard is to become someone you don't recognize? Tell us in the comments. Because stories like this aren't just stories. They're mirrors. And sometimes they reflect the cracks we've learned to live with. This has been AITA Stories. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and don't forget to check the water.